We're starting today the very last chapter of this book, The Gospel in Accordance with Spiritism. And I always like to say the complete name because this is not the gospel. This is the gospel in accordance with Spiritism. Okay, two different things. And Kardec chooses to end the book with a collection of Spiritist prayers. And it's interesting, right? That you give us a collection of prayers when he, and throughout this book, he tells us that what's really important is the purity of the sentiments that produce the purity of thoughts. Therefore, the form, the way, the words that we choose to pray are not very relevant, or regardless of the beauty of the words that we use, the perfect form, grammar that we use, if that is not come in the purity of the sentiments and of the thoughts, it's just words. But Kardec chose to put a collection of prayers to help us out. One of the things that we should ask ourselves is how comfortable are we with prayers? How comfortable are we with opening ourselves completely to God? How do we retain some atavism, some things of the past at the moment of prayer? Or are we completely liberated from all the ritualistic behaviors that we learn from previous experiences, and completely comfortable in following the suggestion of Christ to get ourselves into our room in silence, and speak with God. And as the Spirit suggests to us, in the state of interaction, not only speak, but hear. Hear with the heart, of course. And that's what a true prayer is, right? It's that interaction in which mostly you receive, because in reality, what is it that you can give to God, right? I was listening to Haroldo Dutra Dias the other day, and he was telling when he was in Europe doing research on Hebrew traditions or Israeli traditions, when he was doing this research to make the translation of the gospel. And he had the opportunity to speak with a very famous rabbi. No, he's not a rabbi. He was actually a Catholic priest, but who was on the most renowned, most famous names in studying the Hebrew tradition and everything that deals with the first revelation, right, or the First Testament. And he was speaking with these individuals, was asking that he wants to understand more of these people. And he wants to see how they act, how they do things. And this renowned, very famous student of the Hebrew people said, well, you are looking at it the wrong way. If you really want to understand people, seek to see how they pray, because people pray what they believe. Not only to whom they believe, but what they believe in general. And this collection of prayers that Kardec placed to us here is a synthesis, is a is a complete package of the whole Spiritist doctrine, and is, of course, a whole package of the Gospel according to Spiritism. So we can see in this collection of prayers, as the conclusion, the last chapter, collection of prayers, happens to be a conclusion of this entire book, which is the entire objective of the Spiritist doctrine. Because again, the sole objective of the Spiritism bring to us doctrine is to elevate us morally. In that package, to help us to elevate ourselves morally, comes the philosophy, comes the science, comes the explanations of the life in the spiritual world, come the explanations of the processes of reincarnation, the attachment of the physical body to the spiritual body, to the spirit itself. But all of that has one common objective. It's to elevate us morally. And the elevation of us morally is based on the teachings of Christ. So therefore, the Gospel according to Spiritism is the true objective of this whole doctrine. And this book, in this last chapter, bring to us a complete conclusion of this whole book, because we pray what we believe. So the prayers that comes here from the spirits is in reality telling us in what we believe. If we are true spiritists, of course, right? It's, well, let's read the preamble. It's extremely important that you understand what Kardec brings to us in this preamble. And Zoraida, can you read?
Yes, of course.
I'm just bringing a little bit up.
Okay. Preamble. Number 1, the spirits have always said the form means nothing. The thought is everything. Pray according to your convictions and in the manner that touches you the most. A good thought is worth more than many words that are foreign to the heart. The spirits do not prescribe any absolute formula for prayer. When they do, it is for focusing one's thoughts and especially for calling attention to certain principles of the Spiritist doctrine. One other purpose applies to those who have difficulty expressing their ideas, because there are some who do not believe they have truly prayed if their thoughts have not been formulated. The collection of prayers contained in this chapter is one chosen from among those that were dictated by the spirits in various circumstances. They could have dictated others using different words appropriate for certain ideas or special cases, but the form is of little importance if the underlying thought is the lining thought is the same. The aim of prayer is to lift our soul to God. The diversity of formulas should not create any differences amongst those who believe in God, and even less among the followers of Spiritism, because God accepts all prayers when they are sincere. Consequently, one ought not to regard this collection as a set formulary, but as a variety of prayers based on the teachings given by the spirits. It is an application of the principles of the gospel morality that have been developed in this book, and is a complement to their dictates concerning one's duties toward God and neighbor, wherein all the principles of the doctrine are brought to mind.
Thank you. So a prayer in reality is the elevation of a thought and the opening of oneself to the divinity. Call it God, call it whatever you want. We are going to call it God over here, and everybody agree that we are directing our prayers to the creator and provider of all things. But if anyone chooses to pray to anything else, as long as it's elevated, that's fine. It makes no difference because everything will be directed to God and nothing happens without God's consent. So we agree that we pray to God over here, but we also agree that anyone who may choose to say, oh no, God is too far distant, I'd rather pray only to Jesus. That's fine. Okay. Or someone may think even Jesus is too far distant, so I only pray to my guardian angel. It's also fine. Okay. Yeah. And we know that sentiments produce thoughts, and thoughts produces words and all the form, right? So the form you want to be significant when it's associated with the thoughts that had been produced by the sentiments. Okay? So the form is nothing. The thought is everything. Pray according to your convictions and in the manner that touches you most. In this very paragraph, Kardec seeks to distance us from rituals or memorized prayers. But he doesn't say here that memorized prayer rituals are not good. They are equally good as long as they are in accordance to our convictions and in the manner that touches us the most. So if we believe that a good prayer that will reach God is one that you have to knee and open your arms up or bend over, whatever, and say repeated words 3 times, 7 times, 11 times, and you have that absolute conviction and faith that will bring the effects that you was looking for, they were searching, do so. But what Kardec say, you don't have to do that, but you can do that. Okay, that's very important, and he will reinforce these statements later on here. These pills do not prescribe any absolute formula of prayer, and that's extremely important. These are suggestions. In this collection of prayer brings us a bunch of suggestions, and I'm going to say later on that those suggestions is with a purpose, is with an objective, right? But you don't need to repeat the same words that the spirits bring to us here. Okay. Why? Why Kardec brings this collection of prayers? One, as I mentioned before, because it's the synthesis of the whole doctrine in itself, the most important thing. Two, and it's the same thing over here, right? Call it attention to certain principles of the Spiritist doctrine, which is basically Christianity in its most pure form. And another thing that he brings up here is because some of us have difficulty in expressing our ideas. One other purpose applies to those who have difficulty expressing their ideas, because there are some who do not believe that they have truly prayed if their thoughts have not been formulated. Because we still have this atavism, because most of us come from different religions, for different beliefs, these previous reincarnations. To detach ourselves completely from those experiences may be difficult for some of us. So some of us have to light a candle, some of us have to be in the dark, some of us have, whatever that is the case. Some have to, some believe that we need someone else, someone who is, I don't even know how to say that, above us morally, in order to pray for us, because their prayer carry greater value than ours. Okay, so it's common that you would ask, let's say in the Catholic tradition, the nuns will pray for you. And as like last time I have visited the Philippines in front of a Catholic church, they have a lot of nuns, and when you pass by, they say, "Come here, I'm going to pray for you." And I continue to work. So no, I can pray for myself. That's fine. I thank you very much. And she thought if I did not believe in Jesus, just because I said that I could pray for myself, because they truly believe that they are the ones who have going to this school for praying, and they are expert on prayer. They know better. It's fine, but we need to develop the proper self-esteem that allow us to understand they are equal, that our thoughts, that our sentiments is equal to anyone in this planet, to the most eloquent, to the most enlightened individual, to the least one. The purity of our sentiments just as pure as any other heart, and will produce pure thoughts as anyone else on this planet. So yes, when you play together, the purity of one heart times 10 is 10 people playing together is 10 times as strong, naturally. But it's equally good as anyone else. And because some of us has this difficulty, we still have this atavism, we still have this low self-esteem. Kardec put a collection of prayers over here that can be used as an example of how to pray. But again, you don't have to memorize the words being suggested here by the spirits. And again, it's by the spirits. Okay, Kardec says over here, the collection of prayer contained in this chapter are those that were dictated by the spirits in various circumstances. So it's not, those prayers not created by Kardec, created by the spirits, dictated through mediumship. We receive through, I assume here, through psychography, right? And they could be dictated using different words, because again, the form is not what really interested, is the objective, the intention, and the purity of the thought that is associated, the energy associated, the energy that addressed those words that really mean something. The aim of prayer is to lift our soul to God. This is one, the most important, and it should be sufficient in itself. No, paraphrase Mother Teresa. When I pray, I say nothing. I just listen, and God doesn't say not anything. God just listen, right? If you are able to lift up ourselves to God in that absolutely interaction with the divinity, would there be any need for words? There would be no need for words whatsoever, right? Any questions here? And yeah, we stop here, right? Consequently,
Yes. Consequently, one ought not to regard this collection as a set formulary, but as a variety of prayers based on the teachings given by the spirits. It is an application of the principles of the gospel morality that have been developed in this book and is a complement to the dictates concerning one's duties toward God and neighbor, wherein all the principles of the doctrine are brought to mind. Spiritism acknowledges that the prayers of all religions are good when they're spoken from the heart and not just from the lips. It imposes none, nor does it condemn any. God is too great, according to Spiritism, to reject the voice that employs God or sings God's praises, because it is done in one certain manner rather than in another. All those who pronounce anathemas against prayers that are not in their own formulary show that they know nothing of the greatness of God. To believe that God is bound to one specific formula is to attribute to God the pettiness and to one specific formula to attribute God pettiness and persons of humankind.
Thanks.
Okay.
Okay. So again, we are not regarded this as a form or as a formulary. You're going to regard this as suggestions, as guidelines for when you want to pray. Let's say you want to pray for the dead. My husband, my wife, my grandfather just died. I'd like to send praise to them. And I don't know how is the best approach to that. There is a suggestion in this book that you can use. I want to pray for my aunt who is sick. And I'm a little bit lost on the best way to approach such a prayer. There is a suggestion in this book. Do I have to say the same words that are said with this book? Absolutely not. But you can use as a guideline if we feel the need. And even if you don't feel the need, I think all of us can learn from what's suggested here, right? As a matter of study, if one is humble enough to say, well, I think I'm confident with praying to my grandfather who just died or my aunt who is sick, but let me see what the Spirit suggests to us here. After all, they are the light of the Spirit. After all, they are the ones who put together this whole doctrine for us, and I trust that they could bring something of good that I can associate when I devoted my prayers to my grandfather in the spiritual world or to my sick aunt. It's in itself an exercise of humbleness also. And then Kardec tells over here that what I already said, that this collection of prayers is somewhat a summary of the collection of the Spiritist doctrine, and it says it's an application of the principles of the gospel morality that has been developed in this book, and it is a complement to the dictates concerning one's duties towards God and neighbor, wherein all principles of the doctrine are brought to mind. So if the first most important aspect of prayer is to lift our soul to God, the second, that is pretty much equal to the first, would be our duties concerning God and the neighbor. And what you see over here, that there is not the self. The duties towards the God and the neighbor, which is an act of worship, the Creator and the Provider, and it's an act of charity because there is an absence of the self. We talk of God and the neighbor. Oh, but can I pray for myself? Of course you can, and we should. But Kardec wants to really reassure that we understand our duties towards God and the neighbors, because about ourselves we pretty much get it, right? What we need help mostly is with the worship and the act of charity. Very important here, that many times it brings this aspect that spirituals acknowledge that the prayers of all religions are good when they are spoken from the heart and not just from the lips. So as I said, if you need to kneel, if you need to bend, if you need to dress in a special way, and if you need to sing, if you need to repeat the words 1 time or 3 times, 7 times, 11 times, as long those words, those rituals are dressed with the most pure sentiments that generate the most pure thoughts, then it's equally as good as any other prayer. Any other prayer. Because the Spiritism does not impose none of those things, nor it condemn any. One very important aspect of Spiritism, that's one of the things that really attract me to Spiritism, is that lack of condemnation. There is no condemnation in Spiritism. I very often speak of that we don't need rituals, that they don't like the dogmas, but we don't condemn them as well. If they do good for you as an individual, that helps you to elevate yourself morally, use them. Use all the rituals, use all the dogmas, as long as it elevates you. I personally say, and the doctors they say, that they are not necessary. When the dogmas holds you hostage to them and does not allow you to move on, to progress, then it becomes something that should be avoided, right? If you still believe that you cannot follow sciences because things, insights that are not in the Bible, as an example, there was never dinosaurs on Earth. That's a lie created by man because it's not in the Bible. They don't say, well, it's a dogma that has to be eliminated because it holds those individuals who believe in that hostage on those that dogmas and prevent them to progress, at least intellectually. And I have heard that for individuals that are quite right, actually. I love what it says over here. God is too great, according to Spiritism, to reject the voice that implores God or sings God praises because it is done in one certain manner rather than another. All those who pronounce anathemas against prayers that not in their own formulary show that they know nothing of the greatness of God. To believe that God is bound to one specific formula is to attribute to God the pettiness of passions of humankind. So here we go back to Einstein when you say, I believe in the God that created man, not in the God created by man. The God created by man is the guy who says that you have to do things my way, you have to do things that way, you have to do things that way, otherwise it's not good, right? You basically seek to hold God hostage inside of your little tiny world. Don't understand the greatness of the Creator. Okay, questions, comments? Okay.
Okay. According to St. Paul, one essential condition for prayer is that it must be intelligible so that it may speak to our spirit. Thus, it is not enough for it to be uttered in a language understood only by the one who prays. These are prayers in ordinary language that do not say any more to our mind than if they were spoken in a foreign language. And for that very reason, they do not reach the heart. The few ideas they entail are often suffocated by an overabundance of words and the mysticism of the language. The main requirement of prayer is that it be clear, simple, and concise, without needless phraseology or an excess of epithets that are merely showing finery. Each word should be important, reveal a thought, and strike a chord. In short, it should cause one to reflect. This is the only condition in which the prayer can achieve its objective. Otherwise, it is only noise. One observes, however, with that but an air or distraction and consistency, prayers are spoken most of the time. One can see the lips moving, but by the facial expression and even by the tone of voice, one realizes that it is purely outward, mechanical act to which the soul remains indifferent. The prayers in this collection are divided into 5 categories. Number 1, general prayers. Number 2, prayers of oneself. Number 3, prayers for the living. 4, prayers for the dead. And 5, special prayers for the sick and the obsessed, aiming at calling particular attention to the object of each prayer and to render its importance more comprehensible. They are all preceded with preliminary instructions, a sort of exposition of rationale under the heading Introduction.
Okay, so one of the things that Kardec brings to us is the idea that a prayer should have an objective of a what for, right? More than why we pray, but what for. Like, what do you want to address here? What? So we have traditionally in Spiritism, and it's not a ritual. Some argue that it is a ritual, and they have actually pretty good arguments to say there is an argument that it would start the work with a prayer and finish the work with a prayer. I have heard some pretty good arguments to say that it's a ritual. I disagree that there is a ritual because it has a very clear objective, purpose, and it has no formula. Anyone can make a initial and a final prayer and any way with any words they want. Personally, I think there is repetition because the objective is pretty much the same, right? So when we start our work, if it's a story of study, like this is a study group, naturally should pray that we will be able to learn what's being presented to us, that you'll be able to share what you have learned. Each one of us receive the same message from different angles, and perhaps the participation of everyone to complement each one getting that message from different angles will enrich the understanding of that message for everyone else, right? So that is what we want to accomplish. And when you pray, you ask exactly for that. And you want to give our gratitude for those who are helping us to understand. We want to give our gratitude to those who bring us the message, the subject of studies. We want to, in harmony, express our gratitude for those that preparing that material so we can learn, so we can better ourselves from it. So there is a purpose on it. There is an object of it. Therefore, it's not a ritual, in my personal opinion. Although I have to admit that I have heard some pretty good arguments of those who claim that it's a ritual. Right? So going back to the prayer, let's use an example of the initial prayer that I already used. If I used to come over here and make that initial prayer because I can really only pray in Portuguese, how is it going to help those who do not speak Portuguese? How will it help each one of you who do not understand Portuguese to receive those words, internalize the words, associate the purity of your sentiments, and generate thoughts comparable with what I'm verbalizing? Because ideally, my words is a simple expression of my thoughts, is my thoughts dressed with words, right? But if I speak in a language that you do not understand, it's not going to do anything for you. So the most important thing on a prayer, another important thing, and maybe I shouldn't say the most important, it must be legible, I'm sorry, so that it may speak to our spirit, that it's not enough for it to be uttered in a language understood only by the one who prays. So I believe at that time of Kardec was traditionally masses was still given in the Latin, and just a very small percentage of the group in that room, that church, would understand those words. How can it really affect the heart? How can it help purify the sentiments to produce pure thoughts if you have no understanding of what's being said? Sorry. Another thing that to keep in mind is that if I use myself as an example, and I see myself as an average dude, like 99.9% of the general population, attention span is a problem. Can't devote much time to to a long prayer that goes over and over and over, repeating the same thing in time to time. Why 1/3 of that prayer that is too long and saying too many words, I had already lost myself in that. My thoughts are going somewhere else. So it's very important to be concise. The main requirement of prayer is that it be clear, simple, and concise, without needless phraseology or, or an excess of epithets that are merely showy finery. So there is no need of seeking to have big words that you have to look in a dictionary what that word means. There is no need to have big sentences because in reality we're gonna lose ourselves when we speak out loud for others. I have to think of others when I'm praying, right? I have still get into my room is silent with God, but purify my thoughts, my sentiments, generate the thoughts, but I have to address those thoughts with words so you may receive it over there. And we just hope that my words will do the same thing. Will reach your sentiments and will generate a little bit thoughts as well. So we all pray together, right? But if I go on, keep going on and on and on and on and on, then now I have to pray for this and for that. And this and that. If you are like me, and again, I think I am definitely average. I think most people like me. We're gonna get lost. We're gonna get tired. We're gonna deviate our thoughts. So Kardec puts over here very clearly, right? Simple and concise, without needless phraseology or an excess of epithets. We hear sometimes individuals praying initial prayers and prayers that say, wow, what this guy found out their words. Is that I have to go to the dictionary to see what that means. Nothing wrong with difficult words, but will that prevent me to keep my focus in the purpose, on the objective of that prayer? Let us say, as an example, the sent vibration of love, of renewed hope and faith for those who are suffering. We hope that it generates the purity in the thoughts of everyone listen to that we are going to send those thoughts, energy, and that will reach its target. which are those who are suffering, right? But if I have to use very big words to say the simplicity of this thought, if I keep repeating this over and over again, if you're like me, you're gonna get lost, right? But that's very important, I think, in a prayer that will be concise, that will be objective, that will be frugal with words, but objective in what you are trying to reach. And we see here the Kardec divides this collection in 5 categories. General prayers, and it's going to use the Lord prayers, which we're going to start now. Prayers for oneself, prayers for the living, prayers for the dead, special prayers for the sick, and the obsessed. And what we see again is objective. We try to reach something. We are not just saying the words out there to reach God, and God's gonna ask you, yeah, but why are you asking me? Or what are you telling me? And that tells here there is an objective. It's prayer for oneself, it's prayer for the living, it's prayer for the dead, it's special prayer for the sick. So that is an objective. It's not just, yeah, let's be clear, concise, even with God, right? And he assures that when he says, aim at calling particular attention to the object of each prayer and to render its importance more comprehensible. You have to have an object. What are you praying for, right? The opposite, and before Kardec gives it any one of the suggestion of prayers, that again come from the spirits, in the introduction comes from Kardec, of course, with the assistance of the spirits. For those who are in the stories of Thursday, in the Spirit's book, in the Prolegomena, we remember that Kardec said that in that book and all of the books, all of his comments, all of his addendum to the answer of the spirits and to everything that's done of the spirits had to pass through the Spirit of Truth for the Spirit of Truth to agree to allow it to be placed. So even if Kardec, the comments from Kardec, but it was only published because it was approved, so to say, by the group of the spirits who brought this doctrine to us. So although it's from Kardec, but it's from Kardec with the authorization passing by the analysis of the Spirit of Truth and the Spirit responsible for this doctrine. Comments, questions?
Okay. The general prayers. The Lord's Prayer. Introduction. The spirits have recommended placing the Lord's Prayer at the beginning of this collection, not only as a prayer per se, but as a symbol. Of all prayers, this is the one they place the highest, whether because it has come from Jesus himself or because it can replace all others, depending on the thought one attaches to it. It is the most perfect model of conciseness, a true masterwork of sublimity in its simplicity. In fact, it is highly concise form. It sums up all the duties of humans toward God, themselves and their neighbor. It entails a profession of faith, an act of worship and submission, a request for life's necessities, and the principle of charity. Saying it on behalf of other persons in the same as asking for them what one would ask for oneself. Because of, okay. continue?
Yes, please.
Okay. Because of its brevity, however, the profound meaning contained in some of the words that compose it, it escapes most people. That is why it usually said, without directing one's thought to the application of each of its parts. It is said as a formula whose effectiveness is in proportion to the number of times it is repeated. It is nearly always one of the cabalistic numbers, 3, 7, or 9, taken from the ancient superstitious belief in the virtue of numbers and their use in magic. In order to fill the vagueness that this prayer's conciseness leaves in the mind, following the counsel of the spirits and with their assistance, a commentary has been added to each clause, which develops its meaning and shows its application. According to the circumstances and time available, when one can thus say the Lord's Prayer either in its simple or developed form.
Thanks. So when it comes to the general prayer, the spirits have suggested to use the Lord's Prayer. One, it's the one that Jesus prayed when Peter asked Jesus, teach us how to pray. Rabbi, teach us how to pray. And Jesus prayed what is called now the Lord's Prayers, right? But more than that, we had spoke about a prayer being clear, simple, and concise. This is exactly what this prayer is. We know that one of the characteristics of the enlightened spirits is the ability of saying a whole lot with very few words. The ability to be frugal with words, concise, and still express a lot in very few words is one of the characteristics of the level of the spirits. We can see that in the teachings of Emmanuel. Then we'd imagine that the perfect spirit, like Christ, would have that ability augmented exponentially, right? And that's we see that in the book of Messages of Emmanuel, when he takes one phrase of Jesus or one phrase from the gospel of Jesus and gives us a message of 2 pages, 1.5 page, from 4 or 5 words. And Emmanuel is able to break that down for us, and it's the meaning of those 3, 4, 5 words. And Emmanuel also said that even them, in that group over there, we have a study group over there. Emmanuel has his study group up there. Can you just imagine the study group with Emmanuel and those like Emmanuel? And they still struggle breaking down the teachings of Christ, and they have not yet been able to fully get the whole thing yet. I can only imagine seeing when I've been completely lost. I have no idea, as if putting me and one of us, on the symposium of, I don't know, of astrophysics, the highest of PhD astrophysics. We'll be completely lost. So the Lord Prayer has this Codex says over here. That it is the most perfect model of conciseness, a true masterwork of sublimity in its simplicity. In fact, it is highly concise form. It sums up all the duties of humans towards God, themselves, and their neighbor. It entails a profession of faith, an act of worship and submission, a request for life's necessities, and the principle of charity. So it's the whole package right there for us, right? The worship to ask for the necessities of life and the act of charity. So it's worship, petition, gratitude. Everything is there, right? And Melchizedek was over here. When it says over here, it was stated by Jesus, or because it can replace all orders, depending on the thought one attached to it. So even in its, let's say, perfection of the prayer in itself, if we do not attach to it the energies, thoughts that equates to the sublimity of the prayer itself, it's just words. So even the Lord's Prayer, if it's just repeated without the heart, it's just words. Because of its brevity, however, the profound meaning contained in some of the words that composes it escape most people. If we think that we do understand the Lord's Prayer, we are going to see over here that we still have a lot to learn from the Lord's Prayer itself. Kardec will do exactly what Emmanuel does in the book that I said of his messages. And here is an example that Emmanuel uses a formula that was already used before, that's taking a word of Jesus and breaking down, explain to us the meaning of it, right? And expand the prayer, making it simplified for us to understand it. Now, when we pray, we can use the same formula, the simple form, only the words, and you see the words are in of the prayer at Kardec placed to us in Roman numbers, right? Number one is our Father who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Number two, thy kingdom come. So if you can just follow the Roman numbers, you see the whole prayer here. Or we can use, let's say, number one over here, our Father who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. And we can expand in our own words what we mean when I say that. What do I mean? Our Father who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Any questions, any comments? And just as a comment, once we start reading most of the prayer itself here, it becomes a little bit hard to have much comment. If anyone has any questions, because it's Kardec really, or the spirits, really explains each one of those things so clearly to us that it's hard for me to add anything. Most of my book, when I read it before, it's full of words. I write things all over my book, and a note over here, just noted now that for the prayer itself, I have nothing written because it's hard for me to add anything. I think that was real of the spirit, really expand each sentence so much that it's hard for me to add anything. But I invite and I ask for anyone who asks or to add any comment to complement our better understanding of this prayer.
Okay. Number 3, the prayer. Number 1, our Father who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. O Lord, we believe in you because everything reveals your power and goodness. The harmony of the universe bears witness to a wisdom, prudence, and providence that surpasses all human abilities. The name of one supremely great and wise being is written on all the works of creation, from the blade of grass and the smallest insect to the heavenly bodies that travel through space. Everywhere we see the proof of a parental solicitude, and that is why those who do not recognize you in your works are blind. Those who do not glorify you are proud, and those who do not render thanks to you are ungrateful.
So this is part of worship, right? The prayer again, the prayer has worship, petition, gratitude, giving thanks, right? Here's the part of worship. Our Father, sorry, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Is our recognition to the perfection of the Creator, to the perfection of the maintenance of the creation by this Creator. It is a humbleness to recognize it, to honor, and to be grateful to it. And again, when those were in the spiritual book study last Thursday, when we spoke of, actually, that was in the part of God, actually, already, when you start the book, questions 3 or 4, perhaps. What are the evidences of the existence of God? Is there proof of the existence of God? And the Spiritism answer by our own scientific statement, there is no effect without a cause. That if the cause is not human, then the cause would be for something extra human, the cause would be God, right? And I've made the comment that our science has revealed the existence of God. The more we explore and understand the micro and the macro universe, it's clear for us the existence of God, that it's scientifically possible there would be harmony in the expansion of this universe on everything that happened at the microscopic level if there wasn't very specific laws, physical laws, that maintain harmony, that maintains a consistency required to prevent chaos. It is our inability, is our proud, that unfortunately like us to be blind to it. And that's why Kardec makes, or the Spirit makes a point to serve here. Those who do not recognize you in your work are blind. Those who do not glorify you are proud, and those who do not render thanks to you are ungrateful. Comments, questions?
Okay. Thy kingdom come. Lord, you have given to men and women laws filled with wisdom that would make them happy if they would only observe them. With these laws, they would make peace and justice reign. They would help one another rather than harm one another as they do. The strong would uphold the weak rather than crush them. They would avoid the ills that engender abuses and excesses of all kinds. All the miseries of this world result from the violation of your laws, for there is not one single infraction that does not entail unavoidable consequences. You have given animals the instinct that marks the limit of their needs, and they mechanically conform to it. To humans, however, besides instinct, you gave them intelligence and reason. You have also given them the freedom to obey or violate those of your laws that concern them personally. That is, to choose between good and evil in order to have the merit and take responsibility for their acts. No one can find ignorance of your laws because, in your parental providence, you have willed for them to be engraved in each one's conscience, regardless of religion or nationality. Those who violate them do so because they do not acknowledge you. A day will come when, according to your promise, everyone will abide by them. Then disbelief will have disappeared. All will acknowledge you as the supreme Lord of all things, and the reign of your laws will be your reign on the earth. O Lord, deign to hasten its coming by giving people the light needed to direct them on the pathway of truth.
Thank you. If you look at all of this passage over here, when it breaks down like Kingdom Come, you see almost the whole Spirit's book in this prayer over here. That God has created laws filled with wisdom that would make them happy. Them is us, right? I could say that would make us happy if we would only observe them. With these laws, we would make peace and justice reign, and we would help one another rather than harm one another as we do. This is book 3 of the Spirit's book of moral laws. The first question of that book 3, Kardec asks, what are moral laws or what are natural laws? And the Spirit responds, those are the laws created by God for our happiness. Created by God for our happiness. And if you would follow them, it is one law, but Kardec breaks down in 10 laws for didactics, law of labor, law of freedom, law of just love and charity, law of worship, and other laws I forget each one of them. But those are laws created by God, and if you would follow them, would kind of live in a state of heaven, because no one could do harm to anyone, and justice and peace would reign amongst us. I want to say, thy kingdom come, it says, a day will come when, according to your promise, everyone will abide by them, to those laws. Then disbelief will have disappeared. All will acknowledge you and as the Supreme Lord, and all things, and the reign of your laws will be your reign on earth. So, because there is a law of progress, God given the animals the instinct, given to us as animal also instincts, but as humans, give something more, which is free will, but to prevent us to misuse of free will, to prevent us of making bad decisions, it gives to us all those laws in our conscience. That is part 2 of this book 2 of the Spirit's book, right? That speaks about instinct, the difference of instinct and intelligence, that it speaks of free will. So God gives us free will because God does not impose anything upon us. And not impose anything upon us, it tells us here, I give you all these laws, all these guidelines. Use them, and you live in a state of happiness, and peace. Deviate from them using our free will, you only harm yourself because you're not going to be able to live in a state of peace and harmony and justice. But there is a law of progress that pulls us towards those, our own conscience, that leads us to reflect our decision making, free will, in accordance with those laws. When that happens, then thy kingdom come. Then we established the kingdom of God amongst us on earth. How long it's going to take? It's up to us because we have the free will. Comments? Questions? Okay.
Okay. Number 3. Thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. If obedience is children's duty toward their parents, of subordinates toward their superiors, how much greater is the duty of creatures toward their Creator? Doing your will, O Lord, is to obey your laws and to be obedient without complaining against your divine decrees. People will become obedient when they understand that you are the fount of all wisdom and that without you they can do nothing. Then they shall do your will on earth as the elect do in heaven.
One. Once we understand that those laws that God created for us is indeed for our own good, that to follow them, that to live in accordance to them, that they are already established in our conscience, is the solution for our problems. When you understand that this kingdom of heaven is not for the selfish, it's not for the proud, it's not for the one who only seeks to gain more and more and more and more material possessions. It's not for the one who's extremely attached to material things, but it's more attached to spiritual things. Then the kingdom will come. Doing God's will, O Lord, is to obey your laws and to be obedient without complaining against your divine decrees. To me, the important thing here is to obey your laws because we understand it. Because you reason and we make the better choices based on reasoning, not on fear, not on dogmas, but passing to reasoning, to ability to think, to our intellect. Because God did not give intelligence for nothing. It's to be used in association with the laws imprinted in our conscience. You guide our free will, making the better decisions. Then the king, the kingdom of God will be here as it is in heaven. But again, it's very important that you demystify the idea that we have to do because we have to do, we have to do it because otherwise it's gonna die. Instead of having hell, we have to fear God. It's important to understand that we're going to act because we have understood, and we have reasoned, and we choose to follow those laws imprinted on our conscience because we understand that that is the best. It's the best to share a little bit of what I have, at least my excesses, so everyone can have the minimum necessary to have dignity. Then I have to build walls around my property to prevent those who have absolutely nothing to break into my possession and try to take some that they need to have the minimum necessities. When I understand that, when I become less selfish, less attached to material things, I'm not going to need to build those huge walls around my property any longer. And that we establish a world more just and more peaceful for all of us. When I provide freedom, when I eliminate the injustices of based on difference of color, based on the difference of gender, based on the difference of sexual orientation, they want to understand everybody as equal and give them the freedom to be what they are. I'll make our world less complicated, more just for everyone. Any comments, questions? Okay.
Okay, number 4. Give us this day our daily bread. Give us nourishment for maintaining the strength of our body. Give us also spiritual nourishment for the development of our spirit. The animal finds its pleasure, but humans depend on their own activity and the resources of their intelligence because you have created them free. You said to them, you shall earn your nourishment from the earth with the sweat of your brow. Thus you may labor in obligation, so that they may exert their intelligence in seeking the means of providing for their needs and well-being, some through physical labor and others through intellectual labor. Without labor, they would remain at a standstill and could not aspire to the bliss of the high order spirits. You aid people of goodwill who trust in you for their necessities, but not those who take pleasure in idleness and who would like to receive everything without any effort, nor those who seek the superfluous. How many there are who succumb through their own fault, their negligence, their lack of foresight, or their ambition, and for not wanting to be content with what you have given them. They are the artisans of their own misfortune, and they have no right to complain because they are being punished for their sins. However, you do not forsake even these because you are infinitely merciful. You extend to them a helping hand as long as, like the prodigal son, they are sincerely returned to you. Before we lament our fate, let us ask ourselves if it is not of our own doing. At each misfortune that befalls us, let us ask ourselves if it was not up to us to avoid it. But let us also say that God has given us the intelligence we need to lift ourselves out of any sloth, that it is up to us to use it. Since the law of labor is a requirement for humankind on earth, give us the courage and strength to fulfill it. Give us the prudence, foresight, and moderation also, so that we may not lose the fruit of our labor. Therefore, O Lord, give us our daily bread, that is, the means to acquire through labor the things we need for life. For no one has the right to request what is superfluous. If labor is impossible for us, we will entrust ourselves to your divine providence. If it is your will to test us by means of the most crushing privations, in spite of our efforts, we will accept them as a just expiation for the wrongs we have committed in this life or in a previous one, because you are just. We know that there are no undeserving punishments and that you never punish without cause. Dear God, keep us from being envious toward those who have what we do not, or toward those who have what is superfluous, while we lack what is necessary. Forgive them if they forget the law of charity and love for one's neighbor that you taught. Moreover, keep our spirit the thought of denying your justice when we see the prosperity of the wicked and the misfortune that sometimes crushes good persons. Thanks to the new enlightenment that it has pleased you to give us, we now know that your justice is always fulfilled and never fails anyone. That the material prosperity of the wicked is as fleeting as their corporeal existence, and that they will suffer terrible reversals, whereas the joy reserved for those who suffer with resignation will be everlasting. Number 5.
Give us this day our daily bread. We know that you are not here on vacation. You know this. You're not coming here. This is not a resort that we come here to enjoy ourselves. We come here to work, and work is necessary for our progress. Otherwise, there will be no need for reincarnation to come to this dance world to be associated with the dance physical instrument. An instrument is something that is used to work. And you must be grateful for having this opportunity to work. So when we ask, give us our daily bread, we are asking for nutrition for this physical instrument that requires energy in order to do work. Every instrument consumes energy to do work. This physical body consumes energy to do work. So we need nutrition for it. But equally, we need to nourish the eternal spirit. So the food for the body and the lessons for the soul. Equally important. If we limit our lives only to seek to nourish the body, we are not a lot different from a sardine, from a cockroach, from a horse, from a lion. Actually, a horse do a lot of work for us. But as being humans, we need the nourishment for the body because the human is an animal. But being the spirit created at God's image, we also need to nourish the spirit. So we ask to give us our daily bread, food for the body and the lessons for the soul. Keep us away from laziness. How many there are who succumb through their own fault, their negligence, the lack of foresight or ambition, for not wanting to be content with what they have, what I've given to them. So not only keep us away from laziness, because work is necessary for us. This all the law of labor, again, part 3 of the Spirit's book. But let us be content in and grateful and be guided to make the best use of your divine providence. What you have provided to us, what you have placed in our hands to work, to do what we are able to do to our best. It may be more physical labor, it may be more intellectual labor, it may be more in the arts, it may be more in the physical sciences, it may be more in the social sciences, but everyone has talents in their hands. Go back to the parable of the talents. You receive 5, they receive 10, one receive 5, the other receive 2. Each one receive in accordance to their abilities, but whatever is placed in your hand is for you to multiply. It's for you to make good use of it, right? Be grateful for it and ask to be guided, to be inspired to make the proper use of those talents given to you. And do not be jealous of those who have received more. You don't know where each one of us come from. The one who receives 5 is because he's able to deal with 5. If the one who receives 2 now begs to have 5, you just complicated their own situation because they're not ready to do with that yet. Right? And very often, those who receive 5 is a big test to see if they are ready to deal with 5. We know they could do it with 2, but now let's see if they can do it 5. And that's a very difficult trial for most of us. So be content to what was given to you, divine providence, the talents placed in your hand, make the best use of it and be grateful, because that's are the tools that allow you to progress. If now you are only able to deal with 2, make good use of it. And next time you receive 5 or 10 or whatever, is just, because God is just. There are those who can't work. Not that we are going to judge, not that we are going to try to figure out why those can't work, why some come with mental or physical illnesses that does not allow them to work, and everything needs to be provided to them by us who are able to work. So don't let the strong protect the weak. Let those who are able to produce provide to those who are not able to produce. Love, charity. Love. There is a reason, there is more than a reason, there is a purpose, there is a what for some are not able to produce. We are not in a position of judge. We are not in a position of trying to figure out why, because we are not. But you can tell what for. And from my perspective, it is for me to provide for those who are not able to, because I am able. So it is my responsibility as one who is able to work to provide for the one who are not able to work. Once we understand those laws, we extend those laws as a law in society, we're going to make this world a lot better place to live in itself. So you see over here with this, give us this day our daily bread, how much is in that statement, in little phrase? Six words. No, things 6 words here, there is the whole law of labor, and in this whole law of labor, there is the law of love, justice, and charity. Comments, questions? Let me see here. This. I'm not gonna be able to finish. I would love to finish, but I don't want to. It's 3 minutes to finish. I'm going to stop here.
Okay.
I'd love to have finished. Maybe I talk too much.
No, you don't. You talk what we need to listen to. You do perfectly fine, Elmo. Beautifully.
We continue next week, then we close. We stop on 4, right? Yes.
Yes, so we start on 5 next time.
Any questions? Any comments? Okay. So anyone wants to make the final prayer?
Sure, I'd be happy to, Elmo. Thank you very much, Elmo. That was a beautiful class today. Really appreciate it. And thank you, Sarita, for reading as well. And everybody who is here today in the new year, we're grateful. Infinite Creator and Supreme Intelligence, we give thanks for the renewed opportunity to be together, to share the studies of the gospel according to Spiritism. Our chapter we're studying now is chapter 28. We direct our prayers to God, provider of all things, according to our convictions and faith from the heart. May our prayers be clear, concise, non-mechanical, with the purity of our sentiments. We can use the suggestions and collections of prayers given by the spirits through mediumship. The objective of prayer is to lift our soul to God and the divine providence, and is to act as charity when we offer prayers in gratitude and for those who we consider our neighbors. Prayers of all religions are valuable, and the sincere, purposeful prayers we offer are good. When in doubt, the Lord's Prayer can be precise and a go-to model of prayer, one of the highest that is available. Again, we give thanks to the spiritual benefactors, the good spirits, for guiding and inspiring us today. May we receive the love, light, and peace of Christ within us, for our loved ones, our teachers, our directors, the counselors, the mediums, the workers, and all who are with us, all who are participating. We pray for inner peace, and especially now for world peace, and for those who are suffering in the physical world as well as the spiritual world. We pray for SGNY, our center, and all Spiritist centers throughout the world, that they may grow, expand, and be protected each hour of the day and night. As we close, we humbly ask for safety and protection as we return to family, friends, loved ones, and co-workers. And may we remind ourselves now to go forth as beacons of love, of light, of peace, of service, and